This weekend, Brian To'o is out of State of Origin Game 3. Welcome to the Sports Playbook. I am Daniel, and we are Australia's weekly sports news podcast covering men's and women's sport. So here's everything that happened in sport this weekend. In netball, the Melbourne Vixens win the preliminary final. The Melbourne Vixens came out with a point to prove after being defeated by the Adelaide Thunderbirds. They went up against the West Coast Fever, and the Fever simply had no answers for the Melbourne Vixens. The Vixens won this game 62-51, and Kiera Austin was your MVP. For the Vixens, they will now face the Adelaide Thunderbirds in the grand final this Saturday. That game is at John Cain Arena in Melbourne, so a massive home ground advantage for the Melbourne Vixens. In rugby league, both State of Origin teams have been chosen. For the New South Wales Blues, there is massive contention about this team, so let's run through it. From the top, Brian To'o has not been chosen for Game 3. He's been picked in every single game since Game 1 of 2021. This is a massive call from Laurie Daly, but he believes that Jack Bostock is the answer for the New South Wales Blues. So running through the team, James Tedesco, Jack Bostock making his debut, Bradman Best, Stephen Crichton, so those two join the team, Mark Nwanganitawaze, Mitchell Moses, Nathan Cleary, Payne Haas, Reece Robson, Mitch Barnett, Hudson Young, Liam Martin joining the team, Isaiah Yeo, now your bench, Cameron Murray, Adam Fanua-Blake, Hamale Olukoatu, Blake Bradley, Ethan Strange, Tolu Kola, that's your 19-man squad, and 20th man is Victor Radley. So some big omissions from this team, but can this Blues team head to Suncorp and pull off an ambush? That will be the answer we have to wait for in 1 week's time. And for Queensland, they have chosen their team. They have not listed a 1 to 19 person squad, however, they have given us the total squad. The biggest recall is Pat Carrigan. He returns for the Queensland Maroons. For Carrigan, he's not played a game since late May due to injuring his ankle, but he's been recalled for the biggest game of this year. Let's run through the Queensland squad. Kurt Capewell, Patrick Carrigan, Selwyn Cobbo, Ruben Cotter, Tino Fa'asumalawi, Jojo Fafita, Tom Flegler, Harry Grant, Corey Horsburgh gets called into this team, Trent Liero, Cameron Munster, Jeremiah Nane gets a well-deserved recall after an amazing game against the Penrith Panthers, Brinton Nakora, Max Plath, Kalen Ponga, Hamarsai Tapuai-Fidow, Murray Taulagi, Robert Toya, Sam Walker, and Reece Walsh. That is your Queensland squad, but not the chosen 1 to 19. In the NRL, the Brisbane Broncos season goes from bad to worse. The Roosters got home in a tight game up against the Brisbane Broncos. The Roosters won 24-18, but unfortunately for the 2025 Premiers, that is their 7th loss in a row, and this now means they can only drop one game coming up into the finals, and if they lose any more, they will not play in the finals for 2026. In the other games, the Bulldogs make it 3 wins in a row, beating the Titans 30-12, and Stephen Crichton at 5'8" is a big hit for Bulldogs fans, so one to watch going into the back half of the season. The Dolphins, they pipped the Warriors by 2 points in a tight top 4 contest. That came through a Jermaine Asako goal with 2 minutes to go. The Cowboys, they beat the Penrith Panthers by 14 points in North Queensland. Manly, they defeated the Storm 30-4 in an impressive display, but unfortunately, Luke Brooks has done his ACL for Manly. This is a massive blow for this team. And what's even more impressive about what Luke did, he played 14 minutes with a ACL tear. That's just incredibly heroic, and Luke Brooks, I hope that you have a safe and healthy recovery. The Newcastle Knights, they managed to scrape out a victory up against the West Tigers by 6 points. In the AFL, the Fremantle Dockers win their 14th game of the season. Fremantle put away the Gold Coast Suns convincingly by 51 points. And in the other games, the Brisbane Lions, they defeated the Sydney Swans by 43 points. And Carlton have won their 6th game in a row. They've just defeated the West Coast Eagles by 53 points. North Melbourne, they beat Essendon by 14 points. Port Adelaide, they beat the Adelaide Crows by 26. In cricket, in the Women's World Cup, Australia have defeated India. For Australia, that means they've gone throughout the group stages undefeated in England. This is a massive result for this team. For India, they set Australia a total of 171 to chase, and the 2 Australians that stood up when Australia needed it most was Elise Perry and Ash Gardner. They took control and they absolutely decimated the Indian bowling attack. Elise Perry and Ash Gardner finished respectively with 56 and 53 runs to their names. In Formula 1, George Russell wins the Austrian Grand Prix. From the start, Kimi Antonelli struggled in the opening laps. He ran wide 3 times in 2 laps and he caught the attention of race control. Whilst no penalty was handed out, this was not the start the championship leader needed at the Austrian Grand Prix. For Verstappen, he was well and truly in this battle. He got up from 5th all the way to 3rd in an impressive display in that Red Bull car. But it was a hot day, and this meant multiple DNFs across the board. Both Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas did not finish for Cadillac. That happened in the opening 5 laps. Carlos Sainz also did not finish for Williams. But in the end, George Russell was too good. Starting from the pole, he led every single lap and he went on to win his first race since the Australian Grand Prix. In second place was Max Verstappen for Red Bull Racing in a timely podium for this team. And in third was Kimi Antonelli. The championship leader secured another impressive podium, and this was one to cherish. For Antonelli, he holds the championship lead by 40 points, and his closest rival right now is George Russell, and this is a championship battle that I think could come down to the wire. Let's just say Antonelli doesn't have this in the bag, and there's a lot more races still to play out in the 2026 season. And in rugby union, the Anzac Day tests are now locked in. The Wallabies and New Zealand will now have Anzac Day test matches, which shows true Anzac spirit and rivalry. From 2027, for the first time in 123 years, the Bledisloe Cup test will be played on Anzac Day. Brisbane will host these fixtures in 2027, 2029 and 2031. This will truly become a great trans-Tasman sporting tradition, and personally, this is something that rugby union definitely needs in Australia. That is your weekend sports news roundup. So let's head into our biggest story from the weekend, and it comes in NRL, as it's set to be announced the biggest media rights deal in Australian sport history. It appears NRL are looking to sign a deal with Channel 9 and Foxtel to keep the broadcast rights with those 2 parties respectively. It's been reported that these parties have agreed to a $5 billion broadcast agreement, which would mean the rugby league competition is more valuable than the AFL for the first time in their history. What this means is both Channel 9 and Foxtel have valued the rights at $700 million a year. So let's go through the breakdown of this. From Foxtel's point of view, the figures that are being discussed is $500 million a year just for Foxtel. They will broadcast every single game except the NRL Grand Final. For Channel 9, they will have to fork up $150 million for the free-to-air component of this deal. For this part, they will get 3 games a week, plus all State of Origin, men's and women's, and the NRL Grand Final exclusively. And for New Zealand, their broadcaster in Sky Sports will have to pay $50 million a year just for the New Zealand rights. This deal is rumoured to run through until the end of 2034. But this is a massive win for rugby league, because in AFL's last deal, they had a 7-year agreement that ran through until 2031, and that deal was record-setting at $4.5 billion. So NRL has just outshone the AFL when it comes to the broadcast deal. And with that, we now head into the state of play. So where are things at from the weekend? Let's go through the NRL. The Panthers still lead the competition with 28 points, followed by the Warriors, Roosters and Knights. They are all on 24 points down to 5th position. Manly, Rabbitohs and Sharks, they round out the top 8 and they are all on 22 points. In the AFL, Fremantle still continue to lead the competition. They've now built a 2-game buffer from the Sydney Swans in 2nd position, followed by Hawthorn, Geelong, Brisbane Lions and Adelaide Crows rounding out the top 6. Melbourne Demons, Western Bulldogs, North Melbourne and Collingwood, they round out the wildcard positions. And in netball, the ladder does not matter. It's the grand final this weekend. The Melbourne Vixens take on the Adelaide Thunderbirds. You can't miss that game. And with that, that is your Monday wrap-up. So on Thursday, I'll be back with the week's big stories and everything coming up this weekend. So until then, follow the Sports Playbook across all the socials. We are your go-to for fast sport news without the noise, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day and we'll see you on the next episode.